The Septuagint, a Greek translation of the Old Testament, offers significant examples of the dual meaning of oinos. Ernest Gordon points out that in the Septuagint, the Hebrew word for grape juice, tyrosh, is translated at least 33 times by the Greek word oinos, wine, and the adjective new is not present. Oinos, without qualification, then, can easily mean unfermented wine in the New Testament. It is interesting that the translators of the Septuagint use oinos to translate the Hebrew word for grape juice, tyrosh, instead of a less ambiguous word like glucose, which means must. Jewish encyclopedias, including the Encyclopedia Judaica, 1971, explicitly attest that the Hebrew term yayin was used to refer to a variety of wines, including the newly pressed wine prior to fermentation. It is apparent that in secular Greek and Hebrew, the respective words for wine, oinos and yayin, have been used to refer either to fermented or unfermented wine. This information is essential because it will explain why Scripture sometimes clearly approves of wine and sometimes strongly disapproves of it, while using the same word to designate both. If this dual meaning is present in Scripture, then it will be easier to show that God approves of the unfermented grape juice and that He disapproves of the fermented, intoxicating wine, even while using the same word to designate both. According to Robert Teachout, in his book, The Use of Wine in the Old Testament, there are 141 references to yayin in the Old Testament. 71 times the word refers to unfermented grape juice, and 70 times to fermented wine. Yayin as fermented wine. The very first example of the use of yayin in Scripture describes the intoxicating effects of fermented wine. Noah was the first tiller of the soil. He planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine, yayin, and became drunk, and lay uncovered in his tent. Genesis 9:20 and 21. Another sordid example in which intoxicating wine played a leading role is that of Lot's daughters. Come, let us make our father drink wine, yayin, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve offspring through our father. So they made their father drink wine, yayin, that night. And the firstborn went in and lay with her father. He did not know when she lay down or when she arose. Genesis 19:32 and 33. The Bible condemns the use of fermented yayin. In the book of Proverbs, Solomon admonished to refrain from even looking upon wine. Who hath woe? Who hath sorrow? Who hath contention? Who hath babbling? Who hath wounds without cause? Who hath redness of eyes? They that linger at the wine, they that go to seek mixed wine. Look not thou upon the wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it goes down smoothly. At the last it biteth like a serpent, and stingeth like a viper. Proverbs 23, verses 29 through 32. A similar warning against intoxicating wine is found in Proverbs 21. Wine, yayin, is a mocker, strong drink is raging, a brawler, and whoever is led astray by it is not wise. But even the Israelites largely ignored such warnings. By the time of Isaiah, drinking fermented wine had become a universal problem, even among the priests and prophets, the clergy, just as it is today. Quote, the priest and the prophet reel with strong drink. They are confused with wine, yayin. They stagger with strong drink. They err in vision. They stumble in giving judgment. Isaiah 28:7. Yayin as unfermented grape juice. Unfortunately, there is not a single passage in the Bible that clearly defines yayin as unfermented grape juice. If that passage existed, there would be no controversy. The meaning of the words in the Bible must often be derived from their context and from their comparative usage in other passages. In the case of the word yayin, there are passages where the context clearly indicates that the word designates unfermented grape juice, including Isaiah 16:10. In the Old Testament, God often brings judgment through the removal of the divine blessing from the vineyard and the grape juice. Quote, and joy and gladness are taken away from the fruitful field, and in the vineyard no songs are sung, no shouts are raised, no treader treads out wine, yayin, in the presses, the vintage shout is hushed. Isaiah 16:10. The context of this verse clarifies that what the treaders tread out in the pressing vat is called yayin. This is obviously unfermented grape juice, since fermentation is a time-controlled process. Many wrongly assume that if grape juice is left alone, it will automatically ferment into a good grade of wine. This is not true. Pressed grape juice, called must, becomes spoiled grape juice, vinegar, when allowed to ferment in an uncontrolled environment. No one would want to drink it. Other examples of the use of yayin to designate the unfermented juice of the grape are shown below. In Jeremiah 40:10 and 12, Gedaliah, the Babylonian government, tells the Israelites who had not been taken captive, quote, "Gather wine, yayin, and summer fruits and oil, and store them in your vessels, and dwell in your cities that you have taken." In these two texts above, we find the term yayin used to refer to the fruit of the vine. Alcoholic wine is not gathered from the fields. This strongly supports the idea that the word yayin can refer to unfermented grape juice as well as fermented wine. In the next passage, Jacob, being very old, has gathered his sons together to bless them. In his description and blessing of Judah, he says, quote, "The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the obedience of the people be. Binding his foal to the vine, and his donkey's colt unto the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes." Genesis 49:10 and 11. This is clearly referring to the vine and newly pressed wine, unfermented wine, the blood of grapes. In the love poem written by Solomon, king of Israel, the enjoyment of pure love is compared with yayin. Quote, "O that you would kiss me with the kisses of your mouth, for your love is better than wine, yayin. We will exult and rejoice in you. We will extol your love more than wine, yayin. How sweet is your love, my sister, my bride. How much better is your love than wine, yayin." Song of Solomon 1, verses 2 and 3, and Solomon 4, verses 10. In these verses, yayin can hardly refer to fermented, intoxicating wine, since the author of the book condemns fermented wine as a mocker and a sninger, adder, Proverbs 20, verse 1, and Proverbs 23, verse 32. It is evidence that Solomon is comparing the sweetness of pure, undefiled love with sweet grape juice. Bible scholar Robert Teachout observes, quote, "Just as grape juice was given explicitly by God for the purpose of rejoicing the heart of man, Psalm 104, verse 15, so too was the love between a man and a woman." The foregoing examples clearly indicate that, contrary to prevailing opinion, yayin was used in the Old Testament to designate either fermented or unfermented grape juice. Oinos as fermented wine in the Greek New Testament. As Samuel Bacciocchi points out in his book, Wine in the Bible, one of the clearest examples of the use of oinos as intoxicating wine is found in Ephesians 5:18. Quote, "And do not get drunk with wine, oinos, for that is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit." It is evident that here oinos refers to fermented, intoxicating wine first, because it can make a person drunk, and second, because its usage is condemned as debauchery, that is, utter depravity and dissoluteness. The intoxicating power of oinos is implied in its symbolic use to describe divine judgment upon the wicked. Quote, "He also shall drink of the wine, oinos, of God's wrath, poured unmixed into the cup of his anger." Revelations 14:10. A similar figurative use is found in Revelation 16:19, where it says, "God remembered Babylon the Great, and gave her the cup filled with the wine, oinos, of the fury of his wrath." The intoxicating wine of God's wrath represents the retribution in kind upon the great harlot, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and with the wine of whose fornication the dwellers on earth have become drunk. Revelation 17:1 and 2. Here, spiritual whoredom is represented as intoxicating wine, possessing an incredible power to confuse the understanding and to corrupt the heart. These few examples of the literal and figurative use of oinos make it abundantly clear that the term is used in the New Testament to refer to intoxicating fermented wine. Oinos as unfermented grape juice. The biblical uses of oinos as unfermented grape juice is indicated by 1. The Hebrew Old Testament translated into Greek, known as the Septuagint, the Bible used by the apostles, and 2. Through New Testament texts such as Matthew 9:17. The Hebrew word for grape juice is tirosh. The Septuagint translates this word 33 times as the Greek word oinos. Here is one example where the freshly pressed juice of the grape tirosh in Hebrew is translated oinos in the Septuagint. Quote, "Thy presses shall burst out with new wine," oinos, Proverbs 3:10. The Hebrew word tirosh is translated in the King James Version above as new wine, but the Septuagint simply uses the word oinos without the adjective new. The fact that the translators of the Septuagint use the word oinos to translate tirosh which is the Hebrew word for fresh grape juice, is proof that oinos was used to refer to both fermented and unfermented grape juice. In the New Testament, there is a reference to unfermented wine as oinos in Matthew 9:17, where Jesus says, quote, "Neither is new wine put into old wineskins. If it is, the skins burst, and the wine is spilled, and the skins are destroyed. But new wine is put into fresh wineskins, and so both are preserved." Many believe this referred to the expansive force generated by fermentation of the wine, but no wineskins could resist the pressure caused by fermentation. Bottles can be shattered into pieces by grape juice that has inadvertently fermented. The Encyclopedia Biblica correctly observes that it is impossible that the must freshly pressed grape juice could ever have been put into skins to undergo the whole process of fermentation, as is usually stated, the action of the gas given off in the earlier stages of the process being much too violent for any skins to withstand. In light of this information, Christ's saying about new wine being placed in fresh wineskins can best be understood as referring to wine fresh from the press, which was strained and possibly boiled, and then placed immediately into new wineskins made airtight, possibly by a film of oil on the opening of the wineskin. It appears that Christ's words suggest that new wine was placed into fresh wineskins to ensure the absence of any fermentation-causing substance. If old bags were used, some of the decayed albuminous matter adhering to the sides must, by the action of air, have become changed into a leaven or ferment, thus beginning fermentation and, in due course, burst the skin.